Hi, Francis. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you very much. And you?
I am also well. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, you have several other documentaries that you've done about music, but a lot of that's focused on like pop and rock music. What made you want to explore country as a genre?
That's a good question. As you may know, I made three documentaries about David Bowie,
Right.
and one of his notable statements was that he would listen to all genres in music, but not to country. And I think he was totally wrong, although I think he was right on almost everything else. He was totally wrong about country. And so when I was asked some years ago to make a film about Dolly Parton, which is on Netflix, I believe, still, called Here I Am, I sort of dipped my toe into the country genre, and very enjoyable it was too. So I think I got a taste there. And then from there, when I was asked by Why Now, who are the great company I worked for, on this project, and they said they were doing a country thing, I was delighted.
Fantastic. So, one of the things that I noticed is that this documentary is absolutely stuffed with information about the history and the heritage of country music, but it never feels overcrowded, which I really appreciated. How did you
Thanks.
determine like what storylines to follow and what to leave out to kind of get as much out of it as possible while not making it feel overwhelming?
It's difficult, yeah, because you are trying to get sort of the origins of country music in there. You're trying to get the politics of country music in there. And then you're trying to highlight both some of the older artists and some of the newer artists and why they are relevant. So I suppose when we were looking into artists, we had to determine that not all artists would fit and that we had to have a very clear sort of idea of the direction of travel. And I suppose all I was given when I was given the project was, a title, Rebellion in Country Music. And that's all I was given. So I had to somehow determine what rebellion meant in the 21st century.
Mm,
Uh, and for me, it meant something quite different to rebellion in previous generations in country music, when it meant hard drinking, womanizing, drug taking, prison visiting,
right.
males normally, of the past, the Johnny Cashes, the Waylon Jennings, the, I don't know, Hank Williams Jr. sort of characters. And I thought that, that sort of rebellion was now rather sort of old hat. Everyone
Mm.
had seen that and done that. And so for me, rebellion meant those people who were challenging the status quo within what I think is widely accepted as quite a conservative genre.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things also that I appreciated in talking about that is that Rebel Country never feels like an indictment on corporate or like bro country, but rather a celebration. Can you talk about just like the choices you made to make this feel more celebratory rather than kind of denigrating the more
Absolutely. I
popular, I
think
guess?
it's very easy to sort of polarize and be preachy and that sort of thing and to come down hard on bro country or anything else. But I don't think that is my job. This was something that I wanted to do, like with the Dolly film, which is to celebrate the brilliance of these country artists, because I felt that if I was to get my message about diversity across, the best way is to say, look at these people, they're really, really good and they're hugely talented and you should listen to them, rather than say, you're so wicked for not including these people in the past. I think the best way is to give them give them an arena in which to perform, and then say, okay, well, you make up your own mind. If it's not your kind of thing, that's fine. But these artists are around and they're doing something genuinely new, and yet I think they're all respecting the traditions of country music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the film kind of opens and talks about how Lil Nas X kind of reopened the discussion about real country music. But
Yeah.
you show through the film that this is a discussion that's kind of been going on since, you know, commercial country music began. Can you just talk about kind of like walking the audience through those distinctions of real versus,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. What is authentic country music? I mean, country music is such a broad church that
Mhm.
anyone who comes into it who is doing something slightly different, whether it's Little Nas or Beyonce recently, is sort of regarded, oh, that's not proper country, that's not real country, you know. And even Jelly Roll now has people saying, you know, that's not real country, you know. And real country is, you know, what the definition was, is three chords and the truth. So, by that definition, a lot of people are country. Um, so, I think it was important to state that the debates about who is country and who isn't country have been going since the beginning of time. And everyone has their own personal view on whether Emmylou Harris is proper country, whether she was originally proper country, and now she's regarded as actually the queen of country, like
Mhm.
Dolly or something. But, you know, is Dolly's bluegrass album really country? Well, I don't think anyone would complain about that. No one would argue about that. Um, so yes, and I think the fact that country music has come from such a diversity of origins, whether it's from Mexico or from Africa or African American origins, or it's from Celtic origins, from Ireland or Scotland, you know, it comes from everywhere. And therefore, I think it should be celebrated as a pluralistic genre where there isn't such thing as country. You can have my country. I like this kind of thing, but, you know,
Mhm.
it's not the country. There is no such thing as country music that has a prescriptive sort of idea around it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things also that you did well is to show even with some of the different like styles of country music where you have um like country with more of a hip hop kind of
Yeah.
vibe to it and country with a more Latin kind of vibe. Can you talk just about like finding those artists and figuring out how to kind of make that through line there?
Well, I think it's interesting that a lot of country artists, Jason Aldean did it particularly well by co-opting sort of hip hop into country music. But somehow, when it's done the other way round, it's problematic. And where artists from another genre come in and try and co-opt country music, then it becomes an issue. But
Mm.
yes, I mean, hip hop has been appropriated by the country music artists for a long time and very successfully.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that I kind of found interesting is you're able to show, you know, kind of this path between the perceptions that people have about country music that are untrue but persistent even among like country fans and like all of the ideologies surrounding country music as a documentarian, you know, how do you see your role in separating out like the fact from the fiction, especially when some of it's so intertwined, like about, you know, I mean, you have like Richard Nixon saying this is what country music is, you know, at the Opry, and then yeah, like showing, but this is not true. How do you? But it kind of becomes true. I guess that's kind of the
Yeah.
interesting thing is like how do you like make those distinctions?
I think Richard Nixon was doing what all presidents have done subsequently, which is to somehow claim that country music is Republican at whatever particular time they will do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, in some ways, it's to stand outside that. And again, I think it's my BBC training is to not come down too strongly on one side or another. And I hope that I haven't, that I have remained impartial. And again, just said, look, this is the facts of what happened. And you make your own minds up about that. But I think it has become an overly political and politicized subject. And especially it's, you know, reared its head again with the release of the Beyonce album.
Right.
And I think that's a huge shame, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's interesting because country music itself exists kind of outside of racism and sexism. It has influences from all of these different things, but then it become like the way it's been politicized is it becomes those kind of things, and it almost actually becomes that way. And I thought it was really interesting the way that you kind of navigate that path.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the fact I can't imagine this sort of discussion being had about pop music or
Right.
rock music. No one would be discussing whether diversity was an issue. You know, seem to have gone way beyond that point, thankfully. And I think it's time that country music got to the same place.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
shouldn't be discussing this. It's not rebellious,
Right.
to be slightly different in one way or another. That's not rebellion. That's just being a human being.
Right. I mean, you have, Sam Williams here who comes
Yeah.
from everything, and how somehow he is rebellious because he's, not
Yeah.
straight. That's just
Yeah.
fascinating to me. Like that we can exclude somebody whose whole entire heritage is country
Exactly. And I
music.
think I think because, he comes from country music royalty,
Yeah.
that the spotlight is on him, unfortunately, in a way that it wouldn't have been had he not come from that heritage. But yeah, I think he's done an extraordinary job by saying, this is who I am, this is my boyfriend, this is where I've come from, and if you don't like it, don't listen to me, that's fine, but I'm not going to change who I am. And I think the fact of him coming to the Country Music Awards with his boyfriend was a wonderful and brave and amazing thing to do.
Hmm. Yeah. So because of so many of the conventions in place, I think some country music fans are just not at all familiar with a lot of the artists that you highlight in the film. How would you encourage people to kind of look beyond their local country station to diversify their playlists?
Then we're going to get into a debate on what country radio plays, and that's in itself problematic because they do have a reputation, and the figures back this up, of not playing enough artists, female artists, not enough artists of color, not enough artists who are not heterosexual, etc. There is a dearth of those artists played, and I think that's a huge shame, and it shouldn't be that way. Um, and there's an argument that we didn't include, called Tomato Gate,
Mm,
whereby one DJ said that women should be used sparingly and not played as often because they're just the sort of garnish in a salad. So that's why it was called Tomato Gate, etc.
mhm.
And it's obviously absurd. And then there's the perpetuation of that idea that women like listening to men and not like listening to women. But because there haven't been enough women played, then that just perpetuates, and they get used to hearing men and not used to hearing women. However, the internet has changed all this, so
Mhm.
the proprietorial nature of country music radio has had to change because people can put their things up on YouTube, etc., and on social media, and people can access their music through that. So there are a lot of artists in my program who have enormous followings, whether it's Blanco or Breland or Lindsay L or Sam Williams, etc., who have enormous followings without being played on country music radio.
Excellent. Yeah. Um, well, I wish you just the best of luck at the
Thank you,
festival
Alise.
and
Thank you.
for, your premiere. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Not at all. My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.